Chapter 5 continued. From True Christian Religion, number 64. The divine omnipresence will admit of illustration by the wonderful presence of angels and spirits in the spiritual world. In that world, as there is no space, but only an appearance of space, an angel or spirit can in a moment be present with another. Let but that other come into a like affection of love and of thought derived from that love, for these two, love and thought, cause the appearance of space. From Arcana Celestia 9261. That a distant removal should signify, in the spiritual sense of the word, aversion, is grounded in the removals which appear in the spiritual world. These are determined by dissimilitudes or disagreements or aversions as to their states of spiritual life. For they who are in that world appear in one place, are in a like state as to their affections and the thoughts which are produced from them, but so soon as ever they disagree, they are separated and removed from one another, and that just in proportion to their disagreement. The ground of this phenomenon is that spaces as well as times in the spiritual world are states of the mind, and therefore distances are diversities of states. And yet before the outward sight, these states of the mind appear as spaces, and their differences as distances. There are still the phenomena of spaces and distances, but they owe their origin to changes in the state of their interior faculties. And from Arcana Celestia 7568. The approach of one to another in the spiritual world is without any exception effected by a determination of the thought. And from Apocalypse Revealed 937. In the spiritual world, all presence is called by acquaintances and recollection, and all conjunction by the affection of love. Spaces there are nothing but appearances determined by similitude of minds, that is, of affections and of the thoughts which are derived from them. So that when anyone is acquainted with another, either in consequence of his reputation, or by intercourse with him by conversation, or by relationship, at the very moment that he is thinking of him according to that knowledge, he is straightway presented to his sight, although he might have been, to all appearance, some 1,000 miles off. And if anyone love as well as know another, they dwell together in one society, and if the love be intimate, in one house. From Arcana Celestia 9213. In the other life, by entering the house of another and conversing in one room, they so communicate their thoughts with all who are there present, that those others are not aware, but that those thoughts are self-produced. But if instead of entering the house they stand out of the doors, then, though their thoughts are perceived indeed by those who are within, they are perceived as coming from another and not as self-produced. This is of daily occurrence in the other life. This it is which causes those who are united in opinion or in purpose to appear together in one house, and they are still more united if they are in one room. But in case there be any difference of opinion, they vanish from the sight of those who dissent from them. Such phenomena as these are common and are continually presented in the other life. The cause is that parity of thoughts conjoins and exhibits the presence of another. For thought is internal sight, and there is no distance of places as in this world. From Divine Providence, number 50. Angels and spirits are affections of love, and the thoughts which are their effects, and therefore they are not in space and time, but only in the appearances of them. The appearances of space and time are to them in agreement with the states of their affections, and of the thoughts which flow from their affections. So that if any one think of another from affection, and earnestly desire to see him and speak with him, he forthwith stands before him. There is on this account present with every man spirits who are like him in affection. Wicked spirits with him who have an affection for a like kind of evil with themselves, and good spirits with him who has an affection for the like kind of goodness. And their presence is like that of a person included with others in the same society. Space and time conduce nothing to their presence, because affection and the thought which is its effect are not in space and time, and spirits and angels are affections and the thoughts which are their product. Divine Love and Wisdom 130. Angels constantly turn their faces to the Lord as to a son, because they are in the Lord and He in them. He interiorly leads their affections and their thoughts and turns them constantly to Himself. The consequence of this is that they are unable to look anywhere but towards the east, where the Lord appears as a sun. It follows from this that angels do not turn themselves to the Lord, but that He turns them to Himself. For when they think inwardly of the Lord, they think of Him no other way than as being in themselves. Interior thought itself is not the cause of distance, but exterior thought, which acts in union with the sight of the eyes, and the reason is that exterior thought is in space, but not interior thought. And where exterior thought is not in space, as in the spiritual world, it is still in the appearance of space. But all this will scarcely be intelligible to him who thinks of God from space, for though God is everywhere, He is not in space. He is therefore as well spiritually within an angel as out of him, and it is from this that an angel can see God, that is, the Lord both within himself and extraneous to himself. Within himself when he thinks from love and wisdom, and extraneous to himself when he thinks of love and wisdom. Cana Celestia 10194. In another life, representative objects are brought forth to view in agreement with the state of the interior faculties, for they are correspondences. The most beautiful forms, such as mansions and palaces, refulgent with gold and precious stones, and also gardens and paradises of ineffable beauty, appear round those spirits who are in states of truth derived from goodness, all which forms are from correspondences. Around those who are in states of truth but not derived from goodness, the only objects that appear are stony places, rocks, and stagnant pools. And when occasionally groves of trees are seen, they are barren and unsightly, and this is also from correspondence. But around those who are in states of falsehood derived from evil, there appear marshes, sinks of filth, and other disgusting objects. The cause of this is that in the other life, representatives are outward objects, figured according to the states of the interior faculties. For in this way does the spiritual world bring itself forth to view. From Apocalypse Explained 1100. All things in the spiritual world that appear before the eyes and other senses are correspondences. Land animals of every kind appear there, and also birds of wing. Nor are they confined to those of beautiful form, for others are seen of an opposite description. For these appearances are from the affections and the thoughts of angels and spirits, the angels from their affections and the birds from their thoughts. All who are in that world know that they are correspondences, for they know to what affections and thoughts they correspond. That they are correspondences of affections and thoughts is clearly shown, for no sooner does a spirit or an angel spiritually depart or cease to think on those subjects to which they correspond, than they are dispersed and gone in a moment. From Apocalypse Explained 410. Winged insects of various kinds appear in the spiritual world, but they are appearances originating in the ideas of the thoughts of spirits. And from Apocalypse Explained 395. Spirits and angels are clothed in agreement with their intelligence and according to the reception of truth in their life, for this is intelligence. Indeed, the light of their intelligence is formed into garments, and when the light is so formed, they not only appear as garments, but actually are garments. For all things which exist in the spiritual world and which appear before their sight exist from the heat and light which proceed from the Lord as the Son of the spiritual world. From this origin all things are created and formed, not only in the spiritual world, but all things in the natural world also, for the natural world exists and subsists from the Lord by the medium of the spiritual world. From Arcana Celestia 9212. That garments, when mentioned in the Holy Scripture, signify truths, derives its origin from representatives in the other life. There, angels and spirits appear clothed in garments in agreement with their states of faith or truth, and they are varied according to the changes of that state. They who are in states of genuine truth appear clothed in white garments, and when those truths are the effect of goodness, in splendid garments. But where, as is the case with the angels of the inmost heaven, who are called celestial, their state is one of goodness only, they appear naked. From Arcana Celestia 5146. The highest or most high is, in its spiritual signification, the inmost, and the reason of this signification is that to man, who is in space, interior states appear as higher and exterior as lower. But when the idea of space is removed, as it is in heaven, and also in man's interior thought, then the idea of height and depth is put off along with it, for these are drawn from the idea of space. Nay more, in an interior heaven they have not any idea of interior and exterior states of the mind, for even to these expressions there adheres something of space, but they have instead the idea of a more perfect and of a less perfect state of mind. From Arcana Celestia 9773. Degrees in respect to goodness and truth are signified by height, because height signifies an internal state, and therefore by so much higher the space, by so much more inward correspondentially is the state. Interior in heaven is nearer the Lord as to state, for he is the inmost, and from the inmost proceeds all things. Distances from the inmost are the degrees according to which the goodness and the truth of the mind are spiritually distant from him. Because the Lord is the inmost, he is also the highest, for he is the Son of heaven, whence is all the height in the heavens, and therefore in the Word he is called the Most High. And from Heaven and Hell 162. Though all things in heaven are in progressive and successive order, still angels have no notion and no idea whatever of space and time, and indeed so completely is this the case that they are altogether ignorant what time and space are. From Heaven and Hell 163. Though their life is one of successive progress, just as it is with man in this world, indeed so much so that there is in this respect no difference between the two, yet angels know not what time is, and the cause of this is that in heaven there are no years and days, but changes in the state of the mind, for where there are years and days there are times, and states of mind, where there are changes of state. And from Arcana Celestia 2174. In the spiritual world there are no other good things which are sought from others and given by them than such as belongs to intelligence and wisdom. Other things there are indeed, which are extant to sight, consisting of innumerable objects, but these are appearances derived from their states of intelligence and wisdom. And from Apocalypse Explained 260. To see signifies to understand, because the sight of the eye corresponds to the sight of the rational mind, which sight is the intellect. These correspond together, for the intellect sees spiritual objects and the sight of the eye natural. Spiritual objects are the truths that are the products of goodness, and natural objects are the objects of the senses in various forms. The truths which are products or effects of goodness are seen in heaven in a way equally manifest as objects are before the eye, but yet with a marked difference. Those truths are intellectually seen, that is, they are perceived, which sight or perception cannot be described as to its quality by human language, but will only admit of being comprehended by this, that there is in it a consent and confirmation from the inmost faculty to the truth of a position. For the confirming reasons, of which there are a great abundance, are in the intellectual sight presented as one, and this one is as it were a conclusion drawn from many, These confirming reasons are in the light of heaven, and this light is the divine truth, or the divine wisdom proceeding from the Lord, which is operative in every angel according to the state of his reception. This is spiritual sight or intellect, because this spiritual sight is operative with angels upon the side of their eyes, and presents the truths of the intellect in corresponding forms such as appear in heaven, and which are not unlike those forms in the natural world which are called objects of the senses. Therefore to see, in the literal sense of the word, signifies to understand.